Morning, everybody. Back to the studios again. Now, in the last class, we discussed uh, all the contemporary associated terms related to global warming and climate change, and we started what different types of pollution, and we have defined what is called as environmental pollution. So what is environmental pollution? It's an undesirable alteration in the physical, chemical or biological characteristic of land, water and air through natural and anthropogenic means that you have dictated. I have dictated also. Now, let's start with the meaningful topics today and discuss first of all the contemporary issues of water pollution. So write down contemporary issues of water pollution and see just the headlines. Write down. The biggest example of water pollution in the world is not Yamuna or Ganga. The biggest example of water pollution in the world is what? It is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Great Pacific Garbage Patch. That's the biggest example of water pollution in the world. So you can see in the Pacific Ocean, in the middle and the northern part of Pacific Ocean, there is a trash present. And this trash is what? This trash is roughly about 2002 kilometers in length. Trash means waste. So trash is present in suspended form. It is present. It is 2,200 kilometers in length, 800 kilometers in breadth, and happens to be 10 meters deep. 10 meters deep. Now this trash is called as what? This trash is referred to as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. This trash is called as what? It is called as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Fine. Trash is referred to as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And this, when you are talking about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, because this is the biggest example of, you can see this here, the patch is present. This is the biggest example of water pollution in the world. And this is not only the biggest example of water pollution in the world, it's also the biggest example of plastic pollution in the world. Biggest example of water pollution in the world and biggest example of plastic pollution in the world. Now, if we talk about this trash, it's not that the trash is also only present in a suspended state. The trash is also, the waste have also settled down, and the size of that accumulation is roughly the size of Latin America. What is Montreal Protocol? Montreal Protocol I haven't defined in the class when we discussed ozone layer. LTE LEDs. What is the full form of LTE LEDs? Montreal Protocol I have defined. I haven't defined Montreal Protocol in the class. 1987 what we have discussed in the ozone layer. That Montreal Protocol was signed by 27 nations. India was not among that 27 nations. And the purpose was to limit the production of ODS. When we have completed the chapter, you are coming with this question, and you have written that also in the class. I have defined Montreal Protocol in 1987. 27 nations signed the Montreal Protocol, and this was to limit the production of ODS and also to phase them out. There were two time periods given in this protocol, one for the developed nation and second for the developing nation to phase out what ODS is. A longer time period would be given for the developed nation, a shorter time period would be given for the developing nation to phase out. A longer time period would be given for the developing nation, a shorter for the developed nation to phase out the ODSs, ozone depleting substances. We have discussed this. And give me the LEDs. This is the full form of that. Let me see what you want to say. Now, this is called as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, here when we are talking about this patch, it is 2,200 kilometers in length, 800 kilometers in breadth, and also 10 meters deep. Now, this is visible to us from the satellites. This is visible to us from the satellites. clear, visible to us from the satellites. And we can see it's not that the trash is also only present in a suspended form. The trash has also settled down. And this trash which has settled down is roughly the size of Latin America. Roughly the size of Latin America, this trash which has settled down. Now, this trash consists of what? It consists of fishing lines. Fishing lines means fishing nets as such. Fishing lines are present in that. And we can see not only fishing lines are present, but also present is your cans, bottles, plastic bottles, cans, plastic bottles, diapers, cigarette butts also present in this patch. Now, this patch was formed how? This patch was formed due to jars. Jar is a phenomena in geography when you talk about when two oceanic currents mingle. Suppose two oceanic currents mingle. Here is one oceanic current and here is second oceanic current. So when two oceanic currents mingle, whirling of oceanic water would take place. Now this whirling of oceanic water is called as what? This is referred to as jar. Clear? This is referred to as jar. So we can see that some of the biggest water jars are present in the Pacific Ocean. One is your West Pacific jar and second is East Pacific jar. So the waste products which have been discharged from the continents have been carried by the oceanic currents, and due to jar formation this trash has resulted. Due to jar formation this trash has resulted. So suppose here the jar formation takes place and it is whirling. So due to the centrifugal force it would be pushed outside and getting accumulated here. So this is called as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So due to jar formation this patch has resulted. And we can see that in the year 2009, there was an expedition of scientists launched, and this expedition of scientists started from Lyons in France, and this purpose was to study the nature of Great Pacific Garbage Patch. First objective, that what this patch consists of, what is the nature of this patch. And second was to prepare an elaborate database of marine organisms. So that was also the purpose of this expedition. Clear? This also we can see this was also studied under the in the year 2009 an expedition of scientists was launched from Lyons in France, which was called as what? Which was called as Tara Ocean. The purpose was twofold: to study the nature of Great Pacific Garbage Patch and also to study, prepare an elaborate database of marine organism, because an elaborate database of marine organism was missing. So that was the purpose. Write down please. And then we discussed plastic pollution in context of Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Write down. First, Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Contemporary issues of water pollution. First issue is Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Great. It is the biggest example of water pollution in the world. It is the biggest example of water pollution in the world. Biggest example of water pollution in the world. It is the biggest example of water pollution in the world. In the central and northern part of Pacific Ocean, in the central and northern part of Pacific Ocean, central and northern part of Pacific Ocean, a suspended trash is present. A suspended trash is present. Suspended trash means suspended waste. A suspended trash is present, which is 2,200 kilometers in length, which is 2,200 kilometers in length, 800 kilometers in breadth, 800 kilometers in breadth, and 10 meters deep, and 10 meters deep, 800 kilometers in breadth and 10 meters deep, 10 meters deep. Now it is referred to as what? It is referred to as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Fine. So this would be called as what? This would be called as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now we can see that this patch has been formed. What does it consist of? Write down. It consists of fishing lines. It consists of fishing lines. Fishing lines. Cans, plastic bottles, diapers, etc. Cans, plastic bottle, diapers, etc. And how this has been formed? This has been formed due to gers. This has been formed due to gers. This has been formed due to gers. Gers. And what is ger? What is ger? So when two oceanic currents mingle, whirling of oceanic water takes place. When two oceanic currents mingle, whirling of oceanic water takes place. Now this is referred to as what? This is referred to as ger. Write down. When two oceanic currents mingle, when two oceanic currents mingle, mix. When two oceanic currents mingle, whirling of oceanic water would take place. Whirling of oceanic water takes place. Whirling means rotating. Whirling of oceanic water takes place, which is referred to as ger. Whirling of oceanic water takes place, which is referred to as ger. Referred to as ger. Which is referred to as ger. Referred to as ger. Clear? And we can see, out of the biggest gers of the world, two big gers are present where? In the Pacific Ocean. One is called as East Pacific ger and second is called as West Pacific ger. Write down. Out of the big gers of the world, two are present in Pacific Ocean. Two are present in Pacific Ocean. Two are present in the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean. The East Pacific ger, and the West Pacific ger. The East Pacific ger and the West Pacific ger. West Pacific ger. The East Pacific ger and the West Pacific ger. Pacific Ocean, the East Pacific ger and the West Pacific ger. Clear? Fine. Pacific ger. East Pacific ger and the West Pacific ger. Write down. The waste washed away by oceanic currents. The waste washed away by oceanic currents. The waste washed away by oceanic currents have been carried away from the continents. And due to ger formation, this trash has resulted. And due to ger formation, this trash has resulted. This trash has resulted. Clear? Fine. So what has happened? The waste discharged from the continents have been carried by the oceanic currents, washed away by the oceanic currents, and when they mingle, when the two oceanic currents mingle, due to ger formation, this trash has resulted. So this is called as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, as far as this trash is concerned, what was the initiative taken for this trash? Right down. In the year 2009, an expedition of scientists an expedition of scientists called Tara Oceans. An expedition of scientists called Tara Oceans. Tara Oceans. An expedition of scientists called Tara Oceans. Oceans. Expedition of scientists called Tara Oceans was started from Lyons in France. Was started from Lyons in France. Lyons in France. With two main objectives. With two main objectives. Two main objectives. To study the nature of this patch. With two main objectives. To study the nature of this patch. To study the nature of this patch. And to prepare an elaborate database of. And to prepare an elaborate database of. And to prepare an elaborate database of marine organism. And to prepare an elaborate database of marine organism. Marine organism. See, that's your Great Pacific Garbage Patch, but we haven't completed. We'll discuss it as a part of plastic pollution also. And your question, this is your LT LEDs, long-term low emission development strategy. See, as far as development is concerned, there's a Kuznets curve in environment, and this curve says that if suppose we are talking about this curve, there's a curve which is called as Kuznets curve. Kuznets curve says that development is directly related to emission. So it moves like this. Development is directly related to emissions. Why? Because if development has started, your emissions would also take place. And all nations should be starting their journey as dirty nations. All nations would be starting their journey as dirty nation. Dirty nation means they are emitting more. Clear? And there's a term which is called as, we have discussed, carbon intensity of GDP. Carbon intensity of GDP. Now, carbon intensity of GDP means that if suppose emissions is enhancing, GDP is enhancing, the emissions are also enhancing. So, there is always a correlation between emissions and GDP. Now, this correlation is called as what? It is referred to as carbon intensity of GDP. Clear? And we talked about carbon intensity of GDP yesterday also, that under INDC, India was to reduce carbon intensity of GDP by 33 to 35%, taking 2005 as a base year. Under Panchamrit, the carbon intensity of GDP would be reduced by 45%, etc. beside. But this is called as carbon. Now, India wants long-term low emission development to take place. It means that if emission is directly related to GDP, if emission is directly related to development, let us follow a type of development which would be more sustainable in nature, in which the emissions would be very low. So let's use for our development more and more of renewable energies. Let's use for our development more and more of renewable energies. And if renewable energy is used, why should we be responsible for consuming fossil fuel, which is one of the biggest source of emissions? So let the development be based on renewable energy. Maybe the development is slow, but this would be more sustainable in nature. For example, I give you one example. In the year 2005, India and US were responsible for signing an agreement. And this agreement was called as Future Generation. And this future generation means what? That they would be establishing a oil-based zero emission plant, thermal plant, power plant, oil-based it would be, but it would be zero emission. It means all necessary measures would be taken so that the emissions from this oil happens to be less. Or you can establish thermal solar plants, or you can utilize tidal energy, wind energy. Now this would be used for, if these kind of energy are used for development process, although it may be slow, but it would be more conducive, and also it can be sustainable in nature, which is the main theme of LT LED. Clear? Now let's move forward and discuss this as what. Now if we talk about Great Pacific Garbage Patch, we can say Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not only the example of, biggest example of water pollution in the world, but it is also the biggest example of plastic pollution in the world. And why so? Because 2,69,000 million tons of plastic waste is present in this patch. 2,69,000 million tons of plastic waste is present in this patch. And this waste which is present in this patch has been divided into three categories. Which is present in this patch has been divided into three categories. One is called as what? First category is called as macroplastic. Macroplastic means that this kind of plastic would be having a diameter of more than 200 mm. So this would be called as what? It would be called as macroplastic. Second would be called as mesoplastic. Mesoplastic means that it would be having a diameter between 4.75 to 200 mm. And third would be called as microplastic. Microplastic means it would be having a diameter of less than 4.75 mm. Clear? Just I am calling the cameraman so that this trash or patch can be more clear. I'm just calling the cameraman so that this trash or patch, इसको थोड़ा clear करो. वो question उधर से बच्चे बोल रहे हैं. इसको हाँ? See whether it is clear. They are making it clear, more clearer. Here is your patch. This is your patch. Here lies your patch. This area, the patch is present. Clear? This much it would be clearer. To this extent it can be more clear. Fine. Now see, we can say that as far as Great Pacific Garbage Patch is concerned, it is also the biggest example of plastic pollution in the world, because in it 2,69,000 million tons of plastic is present, which can be divided into three parts. One is called as macroplastic, which would be having a diameter of more than 200 mm. Second would be called as mesoplastic, which would be having a diameter of between 4.75 to 200 mm. And third would be called as microplastic, which would be having a diameter of less than 4.75 mm. Now, microplastic proves to be more detrimental. And this kind of plastic, which has a diameter of less than 4.75 mm, it would be bioaccumulative in nature. Bioaccumulative in nature means that it would be entering the food chain and would be detrimental for the marine ecosystem as such. Microplastic is also referred to as what? It is also referred to as plastic beads. Microplastic is also called as what? It is also referred to as plastic beads. Microplastic. And we can see that as far as microplastic is concerned, it proves to be detrimental. Why? Because it is bioaccumulative in nature. And we can also say that, but we do not have to confuse microplastic with what? We do not have to confuse microplastic with plastic pellets. Plastic pellets is another term. Plastic pellet is used as a cartilage to control the mobs. Fine. So that's called as what? That's called as plastic pellets. But what is the source of microplastic? It cannot be said that the source of microplastic is the decomposition of macro or mesoplastic. It cannot be said so. The main source of microplastic is what? The main source of microplastic is the consumer products that we use. For example, toothpaste, facial scrubs. All these articles consist of what? Microplastic. Clear? All these articles are consisting of microplastic. The lakes of India, They are suffering from microplastic. Why? Because microplastic is also responsible for reducing the oxygen level of the lake, oxygen content of the lakes. So that can be said also about microplastic. But a type of microplastic is referred to as what? It is referred to as nurdles. So let's see also what exactly is nurdles. Fine. Write down. Write down the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not only the biggest example of water pollution in the world, is not only the biggest example of water pollution in the world, but also the biggest example of plastic pollution in the world, but also the biggest example of plastic pollution in the world. Plastic pollution in the world, as it consists of 2,69,000 million tons, 2,69,000 million tons of plastic. And let's study plastic pollution here only. Of plastic, which is divided into three types. First, macroplastic, which has a diameter of, more than 200 mm, macroplastic, which has a diameter of more than 200 mm. Second, mesoplastic, which has a diameter between 4.75 to 200 mm. And microplastic, which has a diameter of less than 4.75 mm, which has a diameter of less than 4.75 mm. 4.75 mm. Three types of plastic: macro, meso, and micro. 4.75 mm. Clear? And we can see abundance is present in the patch is macro, but more detrimental would be what? More detrimental would be microplastic. Write down. Microplastic is more detrimental. Microplastic is more detrimental. And why we are saying more detrimental? Because it enters the food chain of the marine ecosystem and would be said to be bioaccumulative in nature. Write down. It is bioaccumulative in nature. It is bioaccumulative. It is bioaccumulative in nature. Bioaccumulative in nature. Bioaccumulative in nature. Bioaccumulative in nature. Fine. So it is detrimental, bioaccumulative in nature, and we can see that microplastic is also referred to as what? It is referred to as microbeads or plastic beads. It is also referred to as microbeads. It is also referred to as microbeads or plastic beads. Microbeads or plastic beads. Clear? It's also referred to as microbeads or plastic beads. And as far as microplastic is concerned, the source of microplastic is what? It's responsible for degradation of lakes of India also. Write down. It is also responsible for degradation of lakes. It is also responsible for degradation of lakes. As it reduces as it reduces the dissolved oxygen level, as it reduces the dissolved oxygen level. It reduces the dissolved oxygen level. So it is responsible for degradation of lakes also, as it is responsible for reducing the dissolved oxygen level. And as far as microplastics are concerned, we can see that a type of microplastic. See, when you are talking about, if suppose a question is asked like this, that which micropollutant is present in abundance in the ocean, and the options are tire dust, the options are plastic noodles. Noodles is a type of microplastic. So the options are plastic noodles, the options are tire dust. Fine. Now these are the options, suppose. Then what can be done by us is that we would be selecting tire dust. But tire dust is itself responsible for, tire dust is itself microplastic. Because tire dust is made from polymers. Tire is made from polymers. Natural rubber, synthetic rubber, cloth is also present in that. Fine. So when we are talking about tire dust, if suppose a question is asked in which microplastic is not present, the option for you is tire dust. The option for you is also suppose plastic noodles. The option for you is also suppose we say that there are other options like mercury is present, or suppose zinc is present, and they ask you which one of the following micropollutant is present in abundance in ocean. Although zinc is not a micropollutant, but if this type of question is asked where they try to confuse you, then tire dust would be selected. But if in this option this is not mentioned and microplastic is mentioned, then tire dust itself is a microplastic. Itself is a microplastic. Then microplastic would be selected as the option. Clear? So you can see that a type of microplastic is called as what? It is called as plastic noodles. And this is what? This is the second most abundant micropollutant present in the ocean after tire dust. Tire dust is itself microplastic. But this is the second most abundant micropollutant present in the ocean after tire dust. Clear? After tire dust. Second most abundant micropollutant present in the ocean. Clear? So that is your microplastic. And noodles are what? Noodles are lentil sized, dal ke aakar ke, lentil sized plastic. And these lentil sized plastic are a big concern. Why? In the year 2021, not last year, in the year 2021, ship wreckage took place in Sri Lanka, in the coastal areas of Sri Lanka. There was a ship wreckage which took place in the coastal areas of Sri Lanka. And we can see that due to this ship wreckage, noodles has spread on a large scale. It was assumed that this would be responsible for a spread of what? This would be responsible for spread of oil. Oil spill would take place. But this resulted because this ship was carrying bags and bags of noodles. And this ship resulted in the spread of noodles on a large scale. Spread of noodles on a large scale. This ship resulted in the spread of noodles. Noodles are what? Noodles are lentil sized, small sized plastic, which lentil sized plastic, which are used for, they are melted. If you suppose you have worked in plastic industry, the source of plastic is what? Noodles mainly. One is your recycled plastic, which you get from the waste. But second is noodles. So you are responsible for melting these noodles. This would be melted in the form of different kinds of molds, and articles would be prepared. Melted in different kinds of molds and articles would be prepared. So that is called as what? That is referred to as plastic noodles. Clear? It's a concern. Why? Now this ship was carrying bags and bags of noodles. So the noodles spread in the coastal areas of Sri Lanka. And when it spread in the coastal areas of Sri Lanka, it was a grave concern. It became a big concern when noodles spread. Why? Because this was considered to be the biggest marine disaster that Sri Lanka has ever witnessed. Biggest marine disaster that Sri Lanka has ever witnessed. The concern of noodle is what? The first concern related to noodle is their size. Though they are often mistaken as foodstuff by marine organism because of their size. Second concern is what? They are spongy. So if they are spongy, they would be attracting toxic substances. And the third concern is they are made up of polystyrene, polypropylene, polyethylene, polyvinyl chloride. And all these are nothing but chemicals through which they are made. So it happens to be a concern in this manner. Clear? In this manner, it happens to be a concern. So this is your microbeads degradation. Just remember that it is responsible for reducing the dissolved oxygen level. But do remember that the source of microplastic is what? The source of microplastic is also plastic. You have written that? I don't know. The source of microplastic is what? Products like toothpaste and also facial scrub. Write down the source of microplastic is products like toothpaste and facial scrubs. Toothpaste and facial scrubs. Toothpaste and facial scrubs. Fine. A type of microplastic is referred to as plastic noodles. A type of microplastic is referred to as plastic noodles. In the year 2021, in the coastal areas of Sri Lanka, the biggest marine disaster was witnessed. Due to wreckage of ship called Express Pearl. Due to wreckage of ship called Express Pearl. Clear? And we can see that it was not responsible for oil spill, but spread of noodles on a large scale. Write down. In this marine disaster, spread of noodles on a large scale took place. Noodles are a concern. As they are lentil sized. And often mistaken as foodstuff by marine organisms. So they happen to be lentil sized and often mistaken as foodstuff. Now second concern is what? That's the first concern. Second concern is that noodles are spongy in nature, so they would be responsible for attracting toxic chemicals. Write down, since they are spongy in nature. They are responsible for attracting. They are responsible for attracting toxic chemicals. Since they are spongy in nature, they are responsible for attracting toxic chemicals. They are responsible for attracting toxic chemicals. So they are spongy. And the third thing is what? That they are made up of a number of chemicals. They are made up of either constituted by polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, polyvinyl chloride. Right? They are made up of polyethylene. They are made up of polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, and polyvinyl chloride and polyvinyl chloride. Polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene and polyvinyl chloride. So all these are, so slowly I have to speak. Okay, all these are constituting the nodules. All these are constituting the nodules. Is the pace right now? All these are constituting the nodules. I'll speak one word thrice as far as dictation is concerned. Constitute the nodules: polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, polyvinyl chloride. Clear? Fine. Now, nodules are, just remember one fact more, that nodules are the second biggest micropollutant in ocean after tire dust. Tire dust is the biggest micropollutant. But if a question is asked and the option reads microplastic also, tire dust is nothing but microplastic. Clear? Tire dust is nothing but microplastic. So do remember that also. Write down. Nodules are the second biggest micropollutant is present in ocean. Nodules are, I am going slow. Nodules are the second biggest micropollutant, in the oceans. After tire dust. But do mention the fact that tire dust itself is a type of microplastic. Right on. But tire dust itself is a type of microplastic. Itself is a type of microplastic. But tire dust is itself a type of microplastic. Tire dust is itself a type of microplastic. Fine, clear? I am extremely slow now. You cannot complain to me that I am fast. So that's a type of microplastic. Now see, it's not over. Plastic pollution will today cover up, not today, before going to the break, we'll cover up entire plastic pollution. And see, all these things are present. Now, one thing that you have to know, we are studying this microplastic, macroplastic, mesoplastic. But when we talk about plastic products consist of a number of chemicals. One chemical is called as phthalates. Second chemical is called as vinyl chloride. Third chemical is called as bisphenol A, BPA. And fourth chemical is called as what? It is called as BFR, brominated fire retardants. Now, if you talk about phthalates, there are 20 different types of phthalates, And these phthalates are used for making the plastic products more flexible. Plastic products more flexible. But often you see that children playing with toys, and they take these plastic toys in their mouth also. So the phthalates enters their body. The chemicals, which is phthalates, enters their body. And this is responsible for genetic disorder among children. And this is also responsible for sterility among males. Sterility among males. One more fact about microplastic is also reported to be present in human blood. Clear? Microplastic is also reported to be present in human blood. Write down that. Microplastic is also reported to be present in human blood. In human blood. Now, that's a fact. Now, when you are talking about the chemicals, we can see phthalates are present. And phthalates are responsible for, phthalates are today is present in also the air that we breathe. You would have seen that the water bottle that we purchase from the market, the drinking water bottle that we have, the mineral water bottles comes at 20, depends upon the quality, comes at 60, 100 also. But that water bottle would be having expiry date. People do not generally look into the expiry date. They pay 20 rupees, they get a water bottle, or they pay 60 rupees, they get a water bottle. But should be looked into. Why? Because water, if it stays for a longer period of time in the water bottle, it would be responsible for release of phthalates in water. The plastic water bottle would be responsible, and we are talking about plastic bottle. The plastic water bottle would be responsible for release of phthalates in water. Clear? That won't be good for us. Now, that's one thing. But also, which suppose talk about the other chemicals, bisphenol A is another chemical. Bisphenol A or BPA is responsible for what? BPA is responsible for, bisphenol A is responsible for bioaccumulation. It also acts as endocrine disruptor. Bisphenol A is used for making the plastic products more soft. Also, BFR is present, brominated fire retardant is present. Earlier we have studied, when we studied ozone, BFR is also bioaccumulative in nature and it also acts as endocrine disruptor. And as far as the last one, that is vinyl chloride is concerned, vinyl chloride is present, and vinyl chloride is responsible for damaging the central nervous system. So these are chemicals which are present in plastic. So when you write about plastic pollution, you can cite the biggest example of plastic pollution, divide plastic into 3 categories, micro, meso and macro, then talk about phthalates also, tar dust also, then come to what are the chemicals used in plastic. Write down. Plastic products consist of many chemicals. Plastic products consist of many chemicals. Many chemicals, which includes, plastic products consist of many chemicals, which includes phthalates, vinyl chloride, then bisphenol A, and BFR, that is brominated fire retardant, BFR. So all these are the chemicals which are present in plastic. Clear? All these are the chemicals which are present in plastic. Bisphenol A, BFR and also phthalates. Clear? Fine. Chemicals which are present in plastic. Now, as far as phthalates are concerned, phthalates are what? Phthalates are chemicals which are used for making the plastic products more flexible. Write down. Phthalates are chemicals. Phthalates are chemicals which are used for making the plastic products more flexible. Phthalates are chemicals which are used for making the which are used for making the plastic products more flexible. Plastic products more flexible. Flexible. It is present in the air that we breathe. It is present in the air that we breathe. Present in the air that we breathe. It is present in the air that we breathe. Air that we breathe. Fine. And there are 20 different types of phthalates. Write down. There are 20 different types of phthalates. There are 20 different types of phthalates. And for what it is used? Now, what is the adverse impact? What it is used, you know very well. What is the adverse impact? Now, the adverse impact is that it is responsible for sterility among males and also genetic disorder among children. Write down. It is responsible for sterility among males. It is responsible for sterility among males and genetic disorder among children and genetic disorder among children. It is responsible for sterility among males and genetic disorder among children. Genetic disorder among children. Clear? And when we are talking about vinyl chloride, we can see that vinyl chloride is used for what purpose? Vinyl chloride is used for making the plastic products more soft. Texture of the plastic products mainly it is. But what are the adverse impact? The adverse impact of vinyl chloride is responsible for damaging the central nervous system. Write down. Vinyl chloride is responsible for damaging the central nervous system. Is responsible for damaging central nervous system. Damaging central nervous system. Vinyl chloride is responsible for damaging central nervous system. And as far as bisphenol A is concerned, bisphenol A, also called as BPA, now this is used for making the plastic products what? This is used for making the plastic products more soft. Write down. Bisphenol A, BPA, is used for making the plastic products more soft. Is used for making the plastic products more soft. And BFR, you know what, for what purpose it is used, because it's a fire retardant. But we'll club the adverse impact of BPA and BFR. BPA and BFR are both bioaccumulative in nature and they are responsible for damaging the endocrine system. Write down both BPA and BFR. Both BPA and BFR. I'm slow. Now I think I'm slow. Both BPA and BFR are bioaccumulative in nature. Are bioaccumulative in nature. So it enters the food chain. That means bioaccumulative in nature, and acts as endocrine disruptor. 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 Now these are the chemicals which are present in your plastic products. Clear? These are the chemicals which are present in your plastic product. Fine. All the chemicals we have discussed. Now see, one is chemicals, but the plastic pollution includes many things. Also we can see that plastic products, if you are responsible for burning plastic products, then burning of plastic products would be responsible for emission of toxic gases. And two toxic gases we can talk about. One toxic gas is called as what? One toxic gas is called as dioxins. And second toxic gas is called as what? It is called as furans. So we are talking about dioxins and furans. And dioxins and furans, you have learned that both are carcinogenic in nature, and we have discussed dioxins and furans when we were responsible for discussing landfills. Clear, so no need of covering up again in that manner, but we will make a reference that burning of plastic would be responsible for emission of gases which are carcinogenic in nature, and they are called as dioxins and furans. Write down, burning of plastic products, burning of plastic, don't write products also. Burning of plastic is responsible for emission of toxic gases like dioxins and furans. Toxic gases like dioxins and furans. Clear? So that's, and both are reported to be carcinogenic in nature. Write down, both of which are reported to be carcinogenic in nature. Both of which have been reported to be carcinogenic in nature. Both of which have been reported to be carcinogenic in nature. Carcinogenic in nature. Is that clear? Both of which have been reported to be carcinogenic in nature. Carcinogenic in nature. Fine. Now, see, inside the ocean, deposition of mismanaged plastic takes place, and there are riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. Riverine contributors means river as contributor. So there are riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. Now when we talk about that riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in the ocean, we know that there are two big riverine contributors. One riverine contributor is what? One riverine contributor is Yangtze of China, and second biggest riverine contributor is our Holy Ganga. So every year we can see Yangtze of China would be responsible for dumping 3,20,000 tons of plastic in the ocean, mismanaged plastic in the ocean, which has not been properly recycled, disposed, etc. So mismanaged plastic in the ocean. And Ganga would be responsible for dumping 1,20,000 tons of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. So these are two big riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in oceans. Clear? Riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in oceans. Write down. There are riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. There are riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. There are riverine contributors of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. The biggest contributor is Yangtze of China. The biggest contributor is Yangtze of China. Every year it is responsible for dumping. Every year it is responsible for dumping 3,20,000 tons of mismanaged plastic in ocean. Every year it is responsible for dumping 3,20,000 tons of mismanaged plastic in ocean. The second biggest contributor is Ganga. The second biggest contributor is Ganga. Ganga. As every year it dumps, 1,20,000 tons of, as every year it dumps 1,20,000 tons of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. As every year it dumps 1,20,000 tons of mismanaged plastic in ocean. Mismanaged plastic in ocean. Managed plastic in ocean. Clear? Every year it dumps 1,20,000 tons of mismanaged plastic in ocean. Fine. Now, too big. Yes, phtalates are also transferred in sweets, junk food that we eat, which are wrapped in plastic. Definitely. So, before purchasing sweets, because Bengal is very fond of sweets, so please do ascertain that then it is not in plastic bags. Although they never give you in plastic bags. I went to Kolkata, and my favorite is your Gud Sandesh. So I never saw it that it is wrapped in a plastic bag and given. The wrapping of that is under a cardboard box, and that is wrapped under a translucent sheet. That's not plastic. That's not plastic as such. Fine. But yes, in Delhi we can see that plastic is given in also that plastic wraps. So please, we should not prefer these sweets. But in Kolkata it's safe. Now, let's come back. Don't get concentrated in sweets only. Let's move. Now see, second is Ganga. But the problem is what? That if we talk about the plastic footprint of India, plastic footprint is what? Carbon footprint we know. Plastic footprint is the amount of mismanaged plastic generated per person. So if we talk about plastic footprint of India, the plastic footprint of India is tremendously low, very low, 3.2 kg per year. Now this when compared to the global average is what? 17 kg per year. Very low when compared to the global average, 17 kg per year. So how can this type of plastic, when you are talking about that India, if we are saying that on one side that India has one of the lowest plastic footprint in the world, so how Ganga becomes the second biggest riverine contributor of mismanaged plastic in the ocean? Ganga is the second biggest riverine contributor of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. Why? Because half a billion people reside in the catchment area of Ganga, densely populated. That's why Ganga is the biggest riverine contributor of mismanaged plastic in the ocean. So I have written that the biggest riverine contributor is what? Yangtze of China. And the second biggest riverine contributor is Ganga of India. But the plastic footprint of India is very low. Right on. But the plastic footprint of India is very low. Plastic footprint of India is very low. It is the amount of mismanaged plastic. It is the amount of mismanaged plastic. Generated per person. It is the amount of mismanaged plastic generated per person. For India, it is 3.2 kg per year. For India, it is 3.2 kg per year. Which is far less than the global average of. 17 kg per year, which is far less than the global average of 17 kg per year, far less than the global average of 17 kg per year. Global average of 17 kg per year. 17 kg per year. Clear? Now, then how Ganga becomes the second biggest riverine contributor? But Ganga becomes the second biggest riverine contributor. But Ganga becomes the second biggest riverine contributor. Ganga becomes the second biggest riverine contributor. As half a billion people reside in the catchment area of Ganga. As half a billion people reside in the catchment area of Ganga. Catchment area of Ganga. As half a billion people reside in the catchment area of Ganga. Catchment area of Ganga. Reside in the catchment area of Ganga. Is that clear? Fine. Now see, plastic pollution has not ended. We'll discuss more. See, plastic is a part of not only e-waste, but also e-commerce waste and also biomedical waste. Right on. Plastic is also part of e-waste, biomedical waste, biomedical waste, and also biomedical waste, e-waste, biomedical waste, and also e-commerce waste, So plastic is a part of e-waste, biomedical waste, and also e-commerce waste. Fine. So plastic is a part of all these waste. And not only the story ends here, we can see plastic is sometimes considered as, on one side, plastic can be considered as a hazard because of all these reasons. But on the other side, plastic is considered as a poor man companion also. Why? Because it provides livelihood to the rag pickers. Plastic cups are responsible for also bringing the price of the vendors low. So it is nothing but a livelihood for the rag pickers and also is responsible for reducing the cost of tea vendors, etc. Clear? Reducing the cost of vendors, because plastic bags would be used, plastic cups would be used, single-use plastic would be used by them. So it reduces their cost. Right on. Plastic on one side, plastic on one hand is considered as a hazard. Plastic on one hand is considered as a hazard. Plastic on one hand is considered as a hazard. One hand is considered as a hazard. But on the other hand, it is also regarded as, poor man's companion, On the other hand, it is also regarded as poor man's companion. As also regarded as poor man's companion, as on the other hand is also regarded as poor man's companion, as it provides livelihood to the rag pickers, livelihood to the rag pickers, and also reduces the cost of vendors. Don't mention tea vendors. And also reduces the cost of vendors. Clear? And see, it's not about plastic. There are many things which can be said about that. See, plastic products which are littered on the beaches, they have melted under the influence of solar radiation, and they have combined with natural compounds to form stones out of plastic, and these stones are called as what? These stones are referred to as plastigomerate. Plastigomerate. So they have formed stones out of plastic, which is called as what? Which is referred to as plastigomerate. Right on. The plastic products which are littered on the beaches, the plastic products which are littered on the beaches, the plastic products which are littered on the beaches, the coastal areas, the beaches, melt under the influence of solar radiation, melt under the influence of solar radiation, melt under the influence of solar radiation, under the influence of solar radiation, and combine with natural compounds, and combine with natural compounds to form stones of plastic, called plastigomerate, to form stones of plastic called plastigomerate. Is that clear? Stones of plastic called plastigomerate. And see, as far as plastic is concerned, a bulk of plastic, 70% of our clothing, textiles come from plastic. Polystyrene is what? Plastic. And when textile industry is responsible for contributing in greenhouse gas emission, if we take the 2015 data, worth which is equivalent to 185 thermal plants. Now that is also not good news for us. So 70% of our textiles, so that this is called as plastigomerate, and this is one of the worst forms of environmental degradation. 70% of the textiles that we use, more than 70%, what's 70%? More than 70%. It comes from plastic products. It comes from plastic products because polymers which are taken from the petrochemicals are used for development of these textiles. And as far as these textiles are concerned, when these textile industry is responsible for, when textile industry is producing these stuffs, they are responsible for contributing in greenhouse gas emission. And I told you, if we see the data of 2015, the textile industry contributed as much as 185 thermal plants could do. Clear? So that's another thing which can be added. And then we can discuss that what can be done for this purpose. Fine. What can be done for this purpose? Exactly. There are more than 70% of textiles come from plastic. More than 70% of textiles come from plastic. And mainly from where? Mainly from polymers extracted from petrochemicals. Write down. Mainly from polymers extracted from petrochemicals. Mainly for polymers extracted from petrochemicals. Mainly from polymers extracted from petrochemicals. Clear? So petrochemical industry, we get the polymers, and this is used in textile. And we can see that the textile industry is considered to be a big contributor in greenhouse gas emission. Right on the textile industry. Now this is indirect contribution. The textile industry is one of the big contributors in greenhouse gas emission. The textile industry is one of the big contributors in greenhouse gas emission. greenhouse gas emission. And every year it contributes in greenhouse gas emission equivalent to more than 185 thermal plants. Around every year, it contributes into greenhouse gas emission. Every year, it contributes into greenhouse gas emission. Contributes into greenhouse gas emission. Contributes into greenhouse gas emission. Greenhouse gas emission, which is equivalent to 185, which is equivalent to 185 thermal plants, which is equivalent to 185 thermal plants, more than 185. 185 is the data of 2015. This would be more than 185 thermal plants. Is that clear? Fine. Now this is about plastic pollution. So what needs to be done for this purpose? We can say that we can use the 5R principle: reduce, refuse, reuse, recycle, reorient, etc. So that can be one. But also we can see that the contribution of Plastic Man of India cannot be denied. There's a Plastic Man of India. His name is Dr. Rajgopalan Vasudev. He's called as the Plastic Man of India. Dr. Rajgopalan Vasudev. He is referred to as what? He is referred to as the Plastic Man of India. Fine. His contribution cannot be denied. And what is his contribution? As far as plastic emission is concerned, what happens to be his contribution? Now, his contribution is that he has made stones yes, that's what I am coming to, Subhashrees, that you are saying that it can be used as in construction activities. It can definitely be used, but on the other hand, we have developed a stone for that purpose also, exclusively. And in that context, we are discussing just now the contribution of Dr. Rajgopalan Vasudev. So, the Dr. Rajgopalan Vasudev, his contribution cannot be rejected by us because he is an esteemed person, and he was confirmed the Nobel Prize, not Nobel, sorry, he was conferred the Padma Shri in the year 2018, and for his contribution of making what? First of all, he made stones of plastic, which is called as plastones. Now, this he made from the waste, not from the plastigomerate. He melted that waste to make stones of plastic called plastones, which can be used as building blocks. And the next contribution is what? That's immense. That he made roads out of plastic by combining plastic waste with tar. And since both are hydrocarbon derivatives, they easily bind with each other. Now that is his contribution. Clear? That is his contribution. So let's discuss the first two contribution and then write the first two contribution, and then we come to the third contribution, and that is Plastic Waste Management Rules 2021. Write down. Initiatives. First, the 5R principle can be used. The 5R principle can be used. For managing plastic, which includes reduce, refuse, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. Reduce, refuse, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. Clear? Reduce, refuse, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. Fine. Now this is the contribution of what? Contribution of Plastic Man of India. This is the contribution of Plastic Man of India. Refuse, reuse, repurpose, recycle. Plastic Man of India. Fine, his name is, now this is the 5 principle, and then we discuss the contribution made by Plastic Man of India. These are the 5 principles which can be used for managing plastic. Now that's the first point. Second point, write down the contribution made by Plastic Man of India. The contribution made by Plastic Man of India. Plastic Man of India. Dr. Rajgopalan Vasudev. Dr. Rajgopalan Vasudev. Rajgopalan Vasudev. The contribution made by Dr. Rajgopalan Vasudev cannot be denied, cannot be negated, cannot be negated. He was conferred Padma Shri for this purpose. He was conferred Padma Shri for this purpose. Padma Shri for this purpose. And what he did? First of all, he made stones out of plastic which are called as plastones. Write down. He made stones out of plastic. He made stones out of plastic called plastones. He made stones of plastic waste, not plastic waste called plastones. He made stones of plastic waste called plastones, which can be used as building blocks. Which can be used as building blocks. Building blocks. But another contribution deserves more attention. What he did was, he was responsible for combining plastic waste with tar, and for both of them happen to be what? Hydrocarbon derivatives, so easily bind with each other. Right on. He was also responsible for combining. He was also responsible for combining plastic waste. He was also responsible for combining plastic waste with tar. Plastic waste with tar. And since both are hydrocarbon derivatives, since both are hydrocarbon derivatives, they easily bind with each other. And since both are hydrocarbon derivatives, they easily bind with each other. Hydrocarbon derivatives, they easily bind with each other. Easily bind with each other. And see, the data also says that if all roads in India is made up of plastic, there would be a shortage of plastic in India. Shortage of plastic in India. That's also found out by this data. So there would be a shortage of plastic. Fine. Clear? Now he's called as the Plastic Man of India. Third, the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules. And see, when you talk about the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules of 2021, first of all, it was responsible for enhancing the thickness of the plastic bag. So the thickness of the plastic bags has been enhanced from 50 microns to 120 microns. Clear? Now this is effective from December 31st, 2022. Initially it was from 50 micron to 70 micron. Now it is from 50 to 120. So they were to be implemented in 2 phases as such. Now that's the first thing. The second thing about this is what? The second thing about this is that single-use plastic have been banned. Now, purpose of enhancing the thickness is that the bags can be reused. Single-use plastic has been banned. So, cutleries, etc. have been completely banned. So, completely banned. And we can see recycling, collection. Fine. All these would be coming. All these would be coming of plastic waste would be coming under the domain of EPR. Around the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules. The Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules. The Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules. Amendment Rules. 2021 was passed. The Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules 2021 was passed, under which amendment rules was passed, under which amendment rules were passed, under which this single-use plastic, under which single-use plastic products have been banned from July 1st, 2022, have been banned since July 1st, 2022. That's one thing. And the thickness of plastic bag, has been enhanced from 50 microns to 120 microns. 50 microns to 120 microns since December 31st, 2022. Since December 31st, 2022, so that it can be reused, Fine. So that it can be reused. The thickness of plastic bag has been enhanced. Reuse is the main purpose. And also we can see collection, recycling, disposal of plastic waste would be coming under EPR. Around the collection, recycling and disposal of plastic waste would come under collection, recycling and disposal of plastic waste would come under EPR. EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. EPR is standing for what? It is standing for Extended Producer Responsibility. So that's called as EPR. Fine. This much in your plastic pollution we have covered. We have also covered the biggest example of water contamination in the world, which is called as Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And let's look at some other contemporary issues related to water pollution. Fine. Now, we can see that arsenic pollution has taken place in the northern plains of India. And the first reported case was from Murshidabad district of West Bengal only. So, should be knowing that fact. So, first reported case was from the Murshidabad district of West Bengal. But today we can see that the worst affected district due to arsenic contamination in India is Balia of Uttar Pradesh. The worst affected district is Balia of UP due to arsenic contamination. Balia of Uttar Pradesh. Fine. Now, arsenic contamination takes place how? We can see that as far as arsenic contamination is concerned, the areas affected is not only Bihar or Uttar Pradesh or Balia, so Uttar Pradesh or West Bengal, but the areas affected include Punjab and Haryana also today. In fact, we can see that the entire northern plains of India are affected by arsenic contamination. The entire northern plains of India are affected by arsenic contamination. So what is the source of arsenic that we are talking about? The source of arsenic is what? The source of arsenic happens to be Himalayas. Clear? And we can see that the geological processes which were responsible for formation of Himalayas were also responsible for presence of arsenic in the rocks of Himalayas. The geological processes which were responsible for formation of Himalayas were also responsible for presence of arsenic in the rocks of Himalayas. And so rocks of Himalayas had arsenic. So when the perennial rivers originated, yes, suppose we are talking about the perennial rivers, they have originated from the Himalayas. So when the perennial rivers originated, they were responsible for what? They were responsible for eroding these rocks. Eroding these rocks. And arsenic was washed away as a sediment. Arsenic was washed away as a sediment by the hyporheic zone of rivers. Arsenic was washed away as a sediment by the hyporheic zone of rivers. And hyporheic zone of rivers means what? That if we see the river, there are two components of the river. One is the free flowing upper part, but the second component of river is the hyporheic zone. So it's not the only that the free flowing river would be the main source of water, but the source of water happens to be the second part of the river, which is just below the free flowing part, and this part is called as what? This part is referred to as hyporheic zone, which consists of what? Which consists of pebbles. It consists of sand also, and it also consists of what? It also consists of water. So pebbles are present, sand would be present, and also water would be present. And when the river originates, less of water would be present in the upper part, and more of water would be present in the hyporheic zone. But when the river comes to the planar area, when the river is reaching the plains, then more of water would be present in the upper part and less would be present in hyporheic zone. Clear? Less would be present in hyporheic zone. So we can see that when rivers originated, the perennial rivers, when the rivers originated, they were responsible for eroding these rocks. So when they eroded these rocks, arsenic was washed away as what? Arsenic was washed away as a sediment by the hyporheic zone of rivers. Clear? Arsenic was washed away as a sediment because these rocks were eroded. So arsenic was washed away as a sediment by the hyporheic zone of rivers. And they got deposited where? They got deposited. Since hyporheic zone is connected to the fossil water, there is a connection between the hyporheic zone and the fossil water, which is the water in the undisturbed space. So since it is connected to the fossil water, we can see that the arsenic which was carried away by the river, hyporheic zone, it got deposited in the underground water because both these are connected. Both of them happen to be connected. So it got deposited in the underground water and was within permissible limit for drinking. Within permissible limit for drinking. So nothing will happen, you can drink that water. But the concern today is what? Why arsenic pollution has taken place? The concern today is irrigation. Because post-green revolution, excessive withdrawal of underground water for irrigation purpose. So when you withdraw underground water for irrigation purpose, what will happen? The upper part of the water would be removed. Here, the concentration of arsenic in the lower part would be enhancing. Now it is then that it becomes a pollutant. The concentration of water in the lower part would be enhancing, and it is then that it becomes a pollutant. And we can see that pollutant, and this is the main cause of arsenic contamination in India. So if you are withdrawing excess water upper part, suppose this is your bottle, here is your upper part, here the arsenic has settled down, here we withdraw this water for irrigation purpose, what will happen? What will happen? In the remaining part, in the lower part, the concentration of arsenic in underground water would be enhancing. And it is there that it becomes a pollutant. It is there that it becomes a pollutant. Now, this is the reason for arsenic contamination. Clear? But do remember that arsenic can also reach the underground water from seepage of the bedrock, from seepage of the bedrock. So it can reach, it can be present in the underground water from the seepage of the bedrock. And this is the reason behind arsenic contamination in India. So you can see, because of arsenic contamination, diseases takes place, like melanosis takes place. Melanosis is what? Melanosis is a disease in which the color of the skin turns dark due to excess deposition of melanin pigment. Keratosis takes place. Keratosis means the skin would be turning dry and scaly. So dry scales would be witnessed on the skin. So that's the reason. And we can see that this can lead to also black foot disease. Means the foot would be appearing to be black, and black foot disease, it would be the combined effect of melanosis on keratosis on legs would be referred to as black foot disease. So what can be done for this purpose? We can indulge in water harvesting on a large scale, so that our dependency on underground water can be checked. So that's one thing which can be done by us. The second thing which can be done by us is we can use drip irrigation. Sprinkle irrigation can be used, drip irrigation can be used. And drip or sprinkle irrigation would be responsible for what? It would be responsible for reducing, preventing the misuse of water. That can be done by drip or sprinkle irrigation. So that can be also done. And we can also establish shallow tube wells. Shallow tube wells means it would be responsible for withdrawing water from the upper part of the water table. It would be responsible for withdrawing water from the upper part of the water table. So if from the upper part of the water table the water is withdrawn, if from the upper part of the water table water is withdrawn, then definitely the contaminated water won't be going. See, in these areas where arsenic pollution has been reported, we can see hand pumps have been painted with red colors, and red colors signifies that you should not use that hand pump, because the water coming off that hand pump would be nothing but contaminated water. Right on. Arsenic pollution in northern plains of India. Arsenic pollution in northern plains of India. In northern plains of India. Northern plains of India. The first reported case was from Murshidabad. The first reported case was from Murshidabad. But maximum level of arsenic contamination. Maximum level of arsenic contamination is present in Balia district of UP. Maximum level of arsenic contamination is present in Balia district of Uttar Pradesh. Balia district of Uttar Pradesh. Maximum contamination level is present in Balia district of Uttar Pradesh. The areas affected include Punjab, Haryana. The areas affected include Punjab, Haryana, UP Bihar, UP Bihar, West Bengal, UP Bihar, West Bengal. And I told you, maximum contamination level is present where? Balia. Clear? Maximum contamination. And main source of arsenic in this area is not the industrial effluent. Do remember one thing, that arsenic is present within the prescribed limit in rivers, but in underground water it is very high. It's not that in the rivers the arsenic pollution is very high. It's present within the prescribed limit in the rivers. Right now, the main source of arsenic in this area, the main source of arsenic in this area, is the Himalayas. The main source of arsenic in this area is the Himalayas. And the geological processes. Which were responsible for formation of. Which were responsible for formation of Himalayas. Were also responsible for presence of arsenic. In the rocks of Himalayas, were also responsible for presence of arsenic. In the rocks of Himalayas. Clear? When perennial rivers originated, they were responsible for eroding these rocks. When perennial rivers originated, they were responsible for eroding these rocks. And arsenic was washed away. As a sediment. By the hyporheic zone of rivers. Here is the hyporheic zone. And arsenic was washed away as a sediment by the hyporheic zone of rivers. Clear? Now, since hyporheic zone, you know very well, is connected to the underground water, so it got deposited in the underground water and was within permissible limit for drinking. Right on. Since hyporheic zone is connected to the underground water, it got deposited in the underground water. And was within permissible limit for. Drinking. So the permissible limit for of arsenic in underground water is what? It is 5 ppm. That is parts per million. Now that is according to WHO. But we can see that the permissible limit of arsenic, the government of India says that the uppermost limit of arsenic in underground water should be 50 ppm. 5 ppm, 50 ppm. Why? Because in India, the entire northern plains of India has been contaminated by arsenic. Clear? Fine. Northern plains of India have been contaminated by arsenic. Now this is one thing. Second thing that you have to know, contaminated by arsenic. Now the second thing that you have to know is that so government of India says 50 ppm, but don't write these things. The noise levels also differ. According to WHO, above 45 decibel is noise pollution in India, but according to WHO, above 45 decibel is noise pollution, not in India, noise pollution. But in India, the government of India says that above 80 decibel is the noise pollution. Above 80 decibel is the noise pollution. Fine, 80 decibel is the noise pollution. And as far as normal conversation in India is concerned, normal conversation in India takes place between 35 to 60 decibel, which would be called as nothing but noise pollution according to WHO standards. Clear? But the thing is that now it got deposited in the underground water and which was within permissible limit for drinking. Right? But who is the culprit? The culprit is the Green Revolution of India. You cannot write culprit is the Green Revolution of India. But the post-Green Revolution, excessive withdrawal of underground water took place. Right on. Post-Green Revolution, excessive withdrawal of underground water took place. Post-Green Revolution, excessive withdrawal of underground water took place. Excessive withdrawal of underground water took place, which was responsible for enhancing the concentration of arsenic. Excessive withdrawal of underground water took place, which was responsible for enhancing the concentration of arsenic. Enhancing the concentration of arsenic. Which was responsible for enhancing the concentration of arsenic. And it became a pollutant. And it became a pollutant. Responsible for enhancing the concentration of arsenic, and it became a pollutant. Clear? So it was nothing but it became a type of pollutant. Became a type of pollutant. Fine, clear, understood? Right on. The adverse impact of arsenic pollution includes. The adverse impact of arsenic pollution includes. Adverse impact of arsenic pollution includes diseases like melanosis, diseases like melanosis, keratosis, and Blackfoot disease. Diseases like melanosis, keratosis, and Blackfoot disease. Melanosis means that this is a disease in which the color of the skin turns dark due to excess deposition of melanin pigment. Keratosis is a disease in which the skin turns dry and scaly. Blackfoot disease is a combination of both, which would be having its impact on legs. So that's called as Blackfoot disease. So melanosis, keratosis, Blackfoot disease. So all these are adverse impact. Now, what can be done for this purpose? Here it turns dry and scaly. I am writing. Here it turns, skin turns black. And this is a combined effect of both the diseases on the legs. So that's called as Blackfoot disease. Write down. For this purpose, water harvesting should be conducted on a large scale. For this purpose, water harvesting should be conducted on a large scale. So that the dependency on underground water can be reduced. Now that's the first thing. The second thing is what? We can change the pattern of irrigation and we can use drip and sprinkle irrigation. Right on. We can also change the pattern of irrigation. And use drip and sprinkle irrigation. We can also change the pattern of irrigation and use drip and sprinkle irrigation. Now, the technology of drip and sprinkle irrigation was given to us by Israel. We have institutes in this for established in India for this purpose, and one is at Barmer, second is at Hyderabad. So this technology was conferred. But this is a rice and wheat producing area, if you are using drip and sprinkle irrigation, it cannot be conducive for cultivation of rice and wheat. So it means that you have to change the crop pattern. Right on. For this purpose, the crop pattern also needs to be changed. For this purpose, the crop pattern also needs to be changed. Crop pattern also needs to be changed. But then we can indulge in one thing. We would be using shallow tube wells. Through shallow tube wells, we would be withdrawing water from the upper part of the underground water. So that's not a remedy as such, but can be used as a precautionary measure. Right on. One precautionary measure is to use. Precautionary measure is to use shallow tube wells. One precautionary measure is to use shallow tube wells. Which would be withdrawing water from upper part of the water table, so that less of contaminants pass. And we can see that as far as the other measures are concerned, we can in these areas which has been affected drastically by arsenic pollution, one can see that the hand pumps in these areas have been painted with red colors. Red colors are indicative of the fact that the water coming out from these hand pumps would be highly contaminated by arsenic. Right on. In these areas, the hand pumps have been painted with red colors. Hand pumps have been painted with red colors. Clear? Now that's your arsenic pollution. Now see, it's not that only arsenic pollution has taken place in India. We can see that uranium contamination has taken place in some areas. And one such area where uranium contamination has taken place is your Punjab, also Telangana Punjab, Telangana, Rajasthan. These areas have reported uranium contamination. Clear? So let's see what are the reasons behind uranium contamination in these areas. We'll pick up after the break. Just have a break.